Hi, everybody, and welcome to the LA MCA Virtual Summit on creating the ultimate internet presence for your aesthetic practice during a pandemic. I hope that this message finds you in happy and healthy space. My name is Michael Antozzi. I am the Director of Sales as well as Business Development here with Advice Media. And you're going to want to get ready to take a lot of great notes here because obviously this conversation was supposed to happen in March before shelter in place actually had come about and the pandemic started. I've updated a lot of these slides here to really reflect the ever-changing and evolving search environment, and specifically how aesthetic search has changed, how patients are connecting with doctors and practices has changed. And so really, you're going to want to take a lot of this information here today and really employ this onto your digital marketing strategy. And so I really hope that you get a lot of great value from this conversation here today. With that being said, let's dive right in here. So this is obviously a reflection of what happens with the patient's search journey even before coming into your practice. Even if your practice is word of mouth driven and heavily referral driven, patients still do their research about you or your practice online first before really making the decision to come in. And obviously right now, more than ever before, what do we have, which is a ton of time in front of our computer screens? How many Zoom meetings or go-to meetings have you sat in on recently just to learn and educate yourself or to communicate with your staff or patients or patients? Obviously, your screen time access has gone up so much since March has happened. And so has patients. And patients really now have so much more time to be thinking about and reflecting on some of the aesthetic services or procedures that they might want to be investing into. And this is really the time where you need to be adjusting and repivoting your digital marketing strategy so that way you can really capitalize on this active and very fluid search environment right now. Interestingly enough, what we've actually seen among a lot of different aesthetic services and procedures has actually been an increase in search volume on Google's platform, and in some cases even exceeding search viability and interest since pre-pandemic levels. This is actually a screenshot that I'm showing you here for laser hair removal. And look at just how that search interest has gone up on Google's platform since mid-April. I would also say take note as well, too, that big drop-off that you're seeing there is really when shelter in place had happened. And you can see that really right now from a trafficking perspective, the search interest for a procedure like this has exceeded pre-pandemic levels. Let's move into some surgeries as well too. This is not just, the search interest does not even just apply to say non-invasive, but it's also surgical as well. Liposuction has exceeded pre-pandemic levels. Rhinoplasty, same thing that we're seeing here as well. Botox, relatively the same amount as what we had saw prior to the pandemic, but you can really see how that surge has come back. Same with breast augmentation, as well as cool sculpting here as well. So what this is telling you is that even despite the fact that we're all sheltered in our homes right now, and some practices are obviously back to seeing patients right now, patients are still doing their research online, more so now than ever before. This is really a content marketer's dream and opportunity, really to have this search access and search interest from these patients. So this is the time where you really want to be capitalizing on this. Now, in order to do this effectively, you really first have to understand the nuances of Google and really how Google works, particularly within healthcare. And this actually came directly from Google, is that 1 in 20 searches on Google's platform is healthcare related in some capacity. Also, too, Google makes about 9 changes to its algorithm every single day. So take a look at your outside your window and take a look at the weather. Google has changed more today than the weather outside your window. So if we want to visualize this, really this is Google, and Google is making a lot of these changes all the time to really just to improve the user experience and how it's connecting resources with searchers. And within this platform is a high degree of healthcare related searches. So what this is showing you is that effective digital marketing, if it's done right and with intention, is that it's a moving target and it's very fluid. And the best way that you can really position your web presence to capitalize on this environment right now is to have the mindset that your website is never finished. Your digital marketing work is never finished. It's constantly a work in progress. And the more that you're adding to it, the more that you're just basically showing Google that this is a very active web presence, and that is ultimately what's going to help to position your website really to be a resource among this obviously very growing search market for aesthetic services right now. But furthermore, we also have to understand, too, what is the mindset of patients? You know, what are patients actively looking for right now? And the first thing is that we want things now. We want things immediately. I'm going to show you mine here. You show me yours. Everybody that's watching this presentation, I'm willing to bet, has a smartphone. And this is the world. This is any time that I want any information on anything, anytime, anywhere. I can get this within a few clicks and a few searches. This is incredible amounts of power. But with power also comes a lot of delusion with marketing messages. And we really want to understand when we're trying to get resources, we want things now. We don't want to have to wait. The aesthetic patients, they also want to feel empowered, like they're making an educated part of that they're a part of this decision-making process. You know, we want to feel like we've done our research, that we've done our homework, and we can actually build in a great sense of trust into the healthcare providers or the aesthetic providers that we're going to. So we need to feel that sense of empowerment as part of our decision-making process, as part of that journey. And aesthetic patients, they want to have an easy experience when they're finding you online. When they go to your website, they don't want to have to search all over the website to try to find a phone number. It should be readily available. If they're trying to see your work within your before and after gallery, they don't want to have to go digging within your navigation to find it. It should be really much readily available to them. So the question is really, what are you doing to engage this growing market of active users that are seeking out a lot of these aesthetic services? Now, I was giving this talk a few years ago, and a little quick story and side note here is that I was giving this conversation, and a doctor came up to me after the conversation. And the whole conversation was really about positioning your web presence for success. And he had said to me that he has been a Botox injector in Calgary for over 25 years, and that he is the best Botox injector in Calgary, and that nobody does Botox injections better than him. And I was a little taken aback by his moxie, but I was also thinking to myself, okay, well, if I was going to get a Botox injection in my face, I would really want my doctor to have that sense of confidence within himself as well, too. Now, he went on to tell me the story, though, is that since a new practice had moved into town, it's a younger group of guys, it's a younger practice with a few providers, is that they are very new, but since they have come into town over the last 6 months, his schedules have dropped off by over 20%. And it's really making him scared because he's questioning what is going to happen to my practice and to my business. So I said, okay, I really appreciate the context. Let me take a look at your website and, you know, let's see what's going on with your site. Let's start there. So I opened up his website, and right away I could tell him what his issue was. So I said, Doc, I know exactly what your problem is. And he goes, well, you only just looked at my website for 3 seconds. How can you make that determination in that amount of time? I said, that's all the time that I needed. He goes, well, what do you mean? And I said to him, I said, you just got done telling me that you're the best Botox injector in town and that no one does injections better than you. He goes, yes. Your website says that you're mediocre. And this was a dinosaur website. This was probably created back in the days of Windows 95. I mean, it literally had not been touched since that time. It even had a website tracker where you can count the amount of visitors a website actually had and show that visually. You guys might remember that. And I looked at his competition's website, and it was very vibrant. It had a lot of great video content on there. It had a great bio of all of the providers and the doctors that were there. But the site was just very bright, and it made me feel very like I was being wrapped up in a warm blanket of comfort. And that is the experience that your website needs to tell, and the story that your website needs to tell from day one. The moment that we land on that website, you have to make a strong impression. And there's an old adage in marketing is that a confused mind says no. Or another way of saying that is that if you're not making that strong sense of impression, that's going to send a no message in our brains. And we're just going to go to the website that's going to make us feel like we're going to a more credible place for aesthetic services. So I'm actually going to show you guys right now, and I'm going to ask you to tell me what are the websites that make a very strong sense of impression for you. I'm going to show you 6 websites on the next slide. I'm going to give you about 3 seconds to make a determination as what are the practices that you would go to or the practice that you would go to based around how the website makes you feel visually. Okay, so without further, let's dive right in here. Now I gave you a little bit more than 3 seconds, but I'm willing to bet that there was a few that stuck out into your mind. And if we go back to evaluate these here, I'm willing to bet that probably among the 6, if you've guessed 5 and 6, you've won the contest here. Now, why do we say 5 and 6 when we have that finite of window to really make that determination? It's because of the aesthetics of the website, the visuals of the website. If you look at 1, 2, and 3, and 4, there's just so much text that's on here. Where's the phone number? You know, am I going to have to read a lot of information on this website? Oh gosh, I don't want to have to do that. You know, the best websites that convert patients well are visually stimulating. So this is a really great opportunity. If you haven't done so, or if you haven't touched your website in a few years, which believe it or not, I actually talked to a lot of providers that will say that they haven't been on their website in years. Take a look at your website. How does it make you feel? What is the story? What is the narrative that it's telling you about your own practice? If it's not visually engaging and if it's not captivating right away, you really need to look at how you can improve some of those initial conversion elements, because without this, we'll just never stay on your website. Now, moving right along, let's kind of recap here. We've gone over a few different establishing principles here. We've gone over really the surge within aesthetic search interest on Google's platform. We also have understood the mindset of aesthetic patients as they're using Google to really find resources. And we also have gone over really, too, how critical it is for first impressions to be made. Now we're going to shift and really talk about the 5 ways to improve your digital marketing process, specifically during COVID-19. And we're going to go through these one by one. The first is being able to create a great website experience. Number 2 is about establishing your local SEO strategy. Number 3 is really developing a reputation management strategy that works for you. Number 4 is building in social media that's engaging and consistent. And number 5, effective use of content and videos on your website. So let's start with number 1. Now I'm going to ask you a rhetorical question because I can't hear you guys right now in the audience, but why do you have a website? Think about that. And I've asked this question to thousands of doctors as in my 10 years of consulting, and people will say, well, so people can look me up, they can see what I do, they can download forms, they can see a few cases, so on and so forth. That's not why you have a website. You have a website to make your practice money. Make no mistake about it. This is a digital sales funnel for your practice. This is no different than the efforts that you're doing to go out into your local communities to build relationships with referring providers that will bring patients in. This is no different than, say, doing any type of radio or print or TV. This is a new revenue channel for your practice. Now, how well this channel will produce for you is 100% a function of how efficiently it's set up, as well as how engaging the channel is actually within your digital marketing strategy. But a website that works is one that makes you money. Now, a website has 2 primary functions. The first is about patient or traffic generation. Your website has to generate a lot of visibility for you. Now, that can happen from Google searches, that can come from Google paid search as well, that can come from social media, that can come from reviews online, that can come from other directories that are referring in, but your website has to be visible and you have to be doing as much as you can to really increase the site's extension for having more shots on goal for new prospects that are seeking out a lot of your services or procedures. That's really where a lot of the ongoing digital marketing work happens. But secondly, then, once we get to that website, the website has to convert. It has to make it very easy for us to say, pick up the phone, submit a form fill, do an online chat, if you will, to be able to get in touch with your practice. And you must, in today's world, have a mobile responsive website that actually converts. And I'm actually going to show you what this looks like here right now. When I say having a mobile responsive website, the site has to be built in such a way where the site will automatically adjust itself to fit the screen size that you're being launched on. So notice that this is here one website, and you can notice how the site's infrastructure has adapted itself to fit my screen size. This is really effectively how the website will be seen on a mobile device as well. And even as we go down on the screen here, we can see how that phone icon always stays on the eye line of a patient. It never leaves because, again, the site's job is to increase your lead generation volume. As we considered it against a site like this, and Dr. Chang, if you're watching this, I do apologize, but I appreciate the fact that you've made your website as a resource here for learning intentions. But you just look at, first of all, the initial impressions of this site, but also to the conversion elements. You know, as we scroll down here, the phone number basically is very difficult for us to find here. We can see here at the top that the website is also listed as not being secure. These are all things that make you not want to engage with this website and basically just go to another website that's going to give you an improved user experience. So you must have a mobile responsive website that also converts. Moving into local citations. This is the baseline of everything else that you do within your digital marketing. If you remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Maslow was a psychologist that developed a human needs pyramid. And at the bottom of the pyramid was basically physiological. We have to be warm, not cold, dry, our thirst is quenched, we're not hungry. And at the top of the pyramid was self-actualization. And the whole idea about this pyramid is that you cannot move up the levels without having the bottom level satisfied first. And digital marketing works in a very methodical way to that as well, too, where you really have to set your foundation and then build in more advanced techniques. SEO local citations is really one of the first things that I always look for, and most commonly, it's one of the most common errors that I see within a digital marketing strategy that is not set. So what are citations? Citations are basically your practice's name, address, and phone number. And there's a lot of different directories that will aggregate your information. MSN, Google, Bing, City Search. These are some very common directories that you might have heard of before. And I'm actually showing you this website's local citations as well. So these are some of the common directories that you might have heard of before. But as we move down here on the list, we get into the super pages, the city search, the local.com, merchant circle, et cetera, et cetera. Now notice the amount of inconsistencies with this practice's data citations. The name of the practice is California Plastic Surgery Clinic. But as we look to see how that name is actually aggregated online, this one here gives us an inconsistency where that's the wrong title of the business because the doctor's name is in there. Super Pages says that the name of the practice is not California Plastic Surgery Clinic. It's actually Christopher N. Chang, MD. These are all data citations. Now, when Google is trying to show the best websites for localized search results, it scans all of these directories, not just the ones that you and I intuitively know, but a lot of these subset ones that no patients would ever actually go to. All of this matters when you're trying to build in trust and thus more traffic into your website. This is an actual screenshot that's coming from Moz.com, which is an authority as it pertains to search. And I've actually highlighted why do local citations matter. And search engines like Google amass data about each business. If what they encounter is accurate, the search engine will trust the validity of the data, which is believed to strengthen the business's chance of ranking well. However, if the data the search engine encounters is inconsistent, trust is eroded and therefore lessens ranking opportunities. And so again, when the goal is to get better traffic to your website, that's top of funnel, you really have to take care of this as your foundation. And more so specifically that we're living in a time of COVID right now, search behavior has actually changed. What we have seen is that patients are searching with the terms, quote, near me, because we have a much shorter runway to travel further distances. We really want to see who is offering services in our backyard. How Google qualifies, quote, near me is 100% a function of how consistent your citations are. Now, if you don't have this as part of your digital marketing strategy, this is a really great way of being able to verify this. Copy this link. Put that in your browser. You can actually run a scan report for your practice's local citations and see how you're being listed online. If you have a lot of inconsistencies with your data, you need to talk to your digital marketing company about getting this as a part of your strategy. Number two, as we're moving on top of local citations, is reputation management. And really what I'm going to refer to here are specifically Google reviews. Now, this is actually a statistic that's coming from RealSelf, and that 81% of identified reviewers had mentioned that reviews are critical for them before they actually select a doctor to go to that practice. So 81%, that tells you that that's really where our first impressions really start even before we hit the website. And 65% of Google users will visit your Google reviews prior to actually entering into your website. So what are Google reviews, or what are the high volume of Google reviews actually really do for you? Well, obviously it helps with the initial impressions that you're setting for patients, because when people want to go to the best practices, they want their doctors to be successful. And so much of what success means is how we receive Google reviews. But actually, Google reviews can also give you an extra added benefit. And this is where I talk about building digital equity, where it can actually draw in more traffic to your website. Now, this is one of our clients, Warner Center Dental, and I want you to just take a look at their Google review profile when you see the volume of their reviews. On Google, they have over 334 Google reviews, which is outstanding. Now, competitively positioned, this is a practice that's in Woodland Hills, California, which is in the Valley of California. This is some interesting data study here, because as you look at this bottom axis here, this is basically the number of keywords that a website's being optimized for, and this is the amount of traffic that the website generates. And as you can see, Warner Center Dental generates the most amount of traffic with the least amount of keywords. Now, the next best practice that we're looking at here is Woodland Hills Dental Arts, and that's number 2. Now, they have many more keywords into their website, but from a trafficking perspective, Warner Center Dental is always going to be the one that Google is going to prefer to show, and it's a function of their Google reviews. As you look at the next best practice here, and this is Woodland Hills Dental Arts, they only have 19 Google reviews. And so I want you to understand it's not just about increasing your conversion rates with having really great, strong reviews. It's also about really helping to generate more visibility for your website as well. Now, if you do not have a way of generating good volume, either an email or a text tool, you need to be investing into this, because that is really the only way that you can really generate that high volume of Google reviews when you actually have a process in place, a tool in place that will help you to facilitate that. Again, if you don't have something like that, it's time to go to your digital marketing company and talk to them about what you can do to be integrating some of those tools. Social media, another really important tool as it pertains to COVID right now, because again, this is where our eyeballs are living. It's on our devices. It's in front of our computer screens. The average user will check into their Instagram or Facebook profile 7 to 12 times per day. And this can be a very effective tool for patient retention marketing, and really also to increasing the lifetime value that a patient's going to have for your practice. You might be converting them for, say, a non-invasive aesthetic procedure, but is there opportunity to, say, convert them to a surgical procedure as well, or vice versa? So much of how that can how you can build lifetime value is a function of the content on your social media, because this is really where we go to stay retained. Now, patients are going to look up everything about you, but here's the thing. You need to be connecting with people in a real way. 99% of the practices that I see, or the doctors that I see, do social media wrong because they treat their audience as a sales billboard where they're constantly trying to sell either discounts or promotions. And that's not why we go on social media. We go on social media to become engaged. And this falls into the adage here that people interact with people and not businesses. What I'm showing you here is a screenshot of Progressive Car Insurance's Facebook page. And as you can see on Progressive Car Insurance, they have just over 340,000 likes to their profile, which obviously that's not bad volume. But who's the face of Progressive Car Insurance? It's Flo. And why do we like Flo? Flo's cute, she's quirky, she's kind of dorky, but she's fun, she's engaging. It seems like somebody you would want to hang around with because she's just so pleasant and nice to be around. Flo's Facebook page has almost 5.5 million likes to its page. It's the same company, the completely different audiences that they're building within. And this just goes to show you that people interact with people and not businesses. So as you're planning out your social media strategy, what types of content are you producing that's going to engage people? Are you, say, showing people what the process is going to look like coming into your office now that we're living in a pandemic world? Are you showing them the N95s and the face masks that you might be wearing? Shoot a video about that. Or if it's your office manager's wedding anniversary or birthday, celebrate that. Think about what is your practice's brand? What are the unique qualities that make your practice what it is? And market that, document that, because that is really what's going to engage with us, and that's going to build lifetime value and more lifetime customers, not necessarily always promoting a deal on your social media. Advanced SEO. Now what we're going to do is talk to you a little bit more about some content strategies that are really going to help your website be best positioned for organic search. Now, in today's world, when we talk about what is SEO, it's not just about the coding on your website or the H1 tags or the meta descriptions, but it really boils down to who is being the loudest in the digital classroom. That is what Google really wants to show you. If you can kind of think about this as an analogy, and this was me when I was in elementary school, when the teacher had a question, I was always that annoying little kid being like, oh, pick me, I have the answer. That is really what Google wants of your web presence. And that, again, content comes in many different formats. It's not just about having a good foundation for your local citations, but it's consistently generating Google reviews, not just having a one-time period where you generate a lot of reviews and then you don't think about it again, but what are you doing to consistently build that? Consistent social media, consistent content that's always coming out there, as well as consistent content here on your website. Now, going back to what I had mentioned earlier in this conversation, where Google is this ever-moving target and there's always a high degree of healthcare-related searches within Google's platform, the best digital marketing is always going to be very adaptive and fluid and ever-growing. Now, how that is actually created is that when you have an integrated effort with your digital marketing agency, I always want you to understand is that your passion is always going to outwork your budget. In other words, if you're spending a lot of money on your digital marketing, but you're never really engaging with it, or you're expecting your digital marketing company to do the work for you, it's never going to work as well as as your engagement, or say the practice that might not necessarily have as much of a budget, but they're very passionate about creating new ideas and new concepts. And your digital marketing company should be able to help to create that sense of collaboration with you. That also applies to the example that I gave earlier with the Botox injector. He was never engaging with his website because it's just been years since he had even seen it. He didn't even know that he had a bad-looking site. But the newer practice was opportunistic in creating much better assets to make their web presence stronger, and that's what patients are obviously attracted to. So, again, it's very important and vital as part of this process that you have a good, engaging relationship with your digital marketing company. You should be being told, hey, you know, what are some ideas that we can concentrate on, or give me some guidance of what I could be doing on X, Y, Z. Your company should be able to tell that for you. And through that sense of collaboration, through the work that they're doing and the assets that you're creating, very much create something that's going to be very powerful. You're also going to look for ways that you can look to feature and distribute and promote more of your content. If you're shooting a video on a certain service or a procedure, that just doesn't have to live on YouTube and then on your website. That can also go on your social media. That can be a part of an email newsletter that you're blasting out for people. Again, always engage people with content and let the content do the working for you once it's actually created. Questions and answers are huge as well, too. We have to remember, too, in today's world, we have Siri on our iPhones. We have Alexa in all of our homes. We have Google Voice as well, too. We're used to actually using search tools now in a more common sense vernacular, where we're not just searching a keyword, but we're asking Google questions, or we ask these devices questions. And what we have found as an agency is a high degree of lead generation as well as, more importantly, patient conversion on that question-answer format. And what I would encourage you to do is think about the common questions that you're being asked by different services or procedures at your office from patients. Because I guarantee you, as patients are locally based in your market and they're asking you those questions, I guarantee you they have searched those questions first online on Google's platform first. And here's the secret. The patients that search more in a question format, they're higher quality. They're more willing to take action. If you're a surgeon watching this, think about, you know, by the time somebody lands on your table, or even if you're a non-invasive practitioner as well too, people sit on aesthetic decisions before actually making a decision to take action. Sometimes it could be months, if not even years. But by the time they're willing to take action, you want to be able to capitalize on that very quickly. And having your Q&A content is really going to help to position your website as being a much better resource, because those patients are less price sensitive and they want services, again, now. And they want to feel empowered as part of that decision-making process. So Q&As on your website, what I would absolutely recommend is every single service listed on your website should have at least 10 questions and answers. Collaborate with your digital marketing agency and figure out a way that you can actually get that executed. Finally, last, blogs are a great way of being able to add new content onto your website. If you want to understand the value of blog writing, break it down. Better listings on Google, B-L-O-G, blog. That's really what blogs will give you. Again, consistently adding in new content onto your website. Now, a lot of times I talk to practices and they just don't have time to either create blog content. And again, this is where your digital marketing agency really needs to help position you, especially in these times right now, because again, the search viability for aesthetic services, what we have seen, has really exceeded pre-pandemic levels. So you want to be doing as much as you can to be a content producer. Content is not just in the form of text on your website, it's also video content, and specifically leveraging YouTube, which is also owned by Google. YouTube content actually appears in over 70% of Google searches, and so this is a really great way of also creating much better engaging content pieces for your website. Now, going back to that question and answer searcher, the thing that I need to have you understand as well, too, is that by the time we find your website because we've asked a more sophisticated query, we don't want to read through a lot of those questions and answers. That's not why we go to your website. We go to your website to make sure that you're the practice that we want to go to. And that's where the aesthetics of the site really need to sell that. But you need that content in there to really drive that traffic. But YouTube can really be, or YouTube video content can really be a really great, strong, engaging tool to complement your questions and answer content, because it's much more engaging. Remember, our brains are wired to be visual. We would much rather watch a movie on something than say have to read a bunch of text on that subject. And so what I would absolutely recommend is take out your iPhone, shoot it horizontal, have it positioned horizontally here. It doesn't have to be vertically like this. And strategically think about what are the top services that you really want to be promoting at your practice, and film 2-minute videos on those services. Why you're the best at it, why patients want to go to you for it. Talk about your experience. Talk about the number of patients you've served. Talk about how great your staff is to support you. But these are all messages that, as we're receiving them, can really create a ton of engagement as well as great lead generation. And this is just the last statistic here to impart as well too. There's over 3 billion healthcare searches on YouTube's platform every single year. So this is really where people are going with their eyeballs. I appreciate your time and your attention. I know there's a lot of information that we're covering right now, and so much of this is very adaptive and very fluid. So if you have any questions, I am more than happy to be a resource here for you. My email and my cell phone are also listed on here as well too. Please feel free to reach out to me at any time. I'm more than happy to help you obviously navigate these very changing and fluid times. Thank you so much. Stay happy and healthy out there. Take care. Bye-bye.